Welcome to W.I.N with Richardson Richardson. What's important now? Success in business most often comes down to hard work, not by silver bullets and quick fixes. It's knowing where to focus that hard work that's key to winning. Join sales prospecting expert and 3-time seven-figure business founder Carrie Richardson and managing partner of R&R Consulting and former owner of Doberman Technologies Ian Richardson for radical honesty regarding strategic planning, accountability, and execution that will get you the systematic results you're working toward. Let's get into today's episode. Thought leader and your host, Ian Richardson.
Hello and welcome to W.I.N. I'm your host, Ian Richardson of Richardson Richardson Consulting. And today I'm really happy to be talking with Emily Glass, CEO of SyncroMSP. Emily, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Ian. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for joining us. Emily is the president and CEO of Synchro, an all-in-one RMM, PSA, and remote access tool that helps MSPs or managed service providers run more profitable businesses. Previously, Emily was customer experience officer at Datto, where she created an award-winning technical support experience, as well as Datto's chief product officer, driving product strategy. She served in senior leadership positions over at Alyce, Backupify, Akamai, and Brightcove. She has degrees in both engineering and fine arts. And speaking as an insomniac, looking at that background, I recognize a fellow insomniac.
I actually sleep really well because my day's really full, but I do get a lot done.
Hey, there we go. Emily, thanks so much for taking some time to join us here on W.I.N. With W.I.N, we always talk about 3 things in order here. We follow a process at Richardson Richardson, and that's business challenges, achievements, and opportunities. And Emily, before the show, you were sharing with us that one of the big operational challenges that you have a core focus on at Synchro is change management. Figuring out that way to make sure that change goes through in a logical process and doesn't shake the ship too much is a big focus for you and your leadership team. And recently, Synchro's gone through an evolution. You guys have went from that building infrastructure, figuring out the product market fit, launching that platform, to, hey, we've got everything in place. We're ready to go, and we're shifting into a growth-minded organization. Talk to us about that. Share about that challenge and how you guys have managed it.
Happy to, and thank you for having me, Ian. I'm glad to be here. We've been going through a lot of changes, as I think a lot of the world has over the last couple of years, right? And change management is not a new concept. But I do think that MSPs and businesses and the world at large have seen an accelerated pace of change over the last couple of years. And, Syncro is not immune from that. And we have the context or the situation where, as you said, we had found product market fit. We continue to grow with our partners, and we're really entering that growth phase and starting to realize that what got us here, a lot of the people, the process, the approach, the roadmap won't get us to where we need to go. And as you go through that journey, things start to break, become more efficient, don't work as well as they used to for one reason or another. And I think, we found one of the things that's key is communication to try to work through that. So that's something I'm really focused on in the current state of things, as things are changing all the time. It's really important to stay in touch internally with folks, right? As you're making decisions, changing process, growing, adding people, make sure you communicate to those new people why they're here. And also make sure we can do outreach to our partners and let them know how we're shifting and changing as we go through this. So we want to make sure that we're working hand in hand with them so that we're not disrupting their businesses as we change, but we're innovating quickly too. So that's a delicate balance.
I love that. I love that focus on expectations and communication. Getting out there and saying, hey, look, this is what's going on. This is where we're headed. This is what to expect, and presenting it not only to your team but to your customers, so then that your partners, those MSPs that rely on Synchro as an integral like core strategic focus and partner for their business know, hey, this is what's happening. I can communicate with my clients. I can communicate with my team. Everyone's on board and everyone's rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, and it's definitely a challenge to make sure everybody, back to the communication, knows what's going on, right? Internally, externally, it's almost like a tidal wave. That might be extreme, but some days it feels like a tidal wave that's going across the organization and, outside that sort of touches everything. And, there's so much to communicate. You have to really make careful choices about what matters to whom, when, internal and external, right? And who you're going to listen to. Because not everybody's going to be happy as you go through changes. And I'm sure MSPs can relate to that too, as they go through changes in their business and have wanted to put forth new solutions, services, new methods of working that some of their old clients or legacy clients maybe don't like the new approach. Or as they bring in new people and new ways of thinking, it takes some adjustment. So communication is really key.
Yeah, that adage where you can't make everyone happy, and recognizing that, and that doesn't make the organization bad. It doesn't make the customer bad. It just says, hey, you know what? Like, this no longer seems like a strategic alignment fit, and that's okay. Speaking of kind of alignment, that's an amazing segue that you teed it up for me there.
You're welcome.
During change, alignment is really difficult to achieve. It's almost by the definition that making sure everyone's on the same page, that really is tough. And you had mentioned that some of the achievements that you're happy about and recognizing there is that there's been milestones you had set up for measuring alignment, which alignment's such a amorphous term. It's such a amorphous space. It's almost like culture, which you and I are diving deep into in a couple of weeks on the Richardson and Richardson webinar series, the Thursday process. Measuring alignment with those milestones is challenging at best, and you've been able to recognize some of those. Would you mind sharing with us about those milestones? What were they, and how did you set those, and what did it feel like to see your team hit them?
Yeah, happy to chat about that. And it's definitely a journey, right? So as changes never stop, the alignment, you never reach perfection and can call it a day, call it done. You have to keep working at. So, one of the things early on, and I think can help achieve alignment, is getting everybody talking about the data that you have in your business and deciding what to talk about. What does it mean? And I like to think about data as like having a shelf life. There's a point where you discover it. Did you discover a new insight, or you discover a trend or a set of data, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you all kind of collaborate, discuss it, segment it, slice it, whatever you need to do, and you get an insight out of it at the end of the day. Or maybe you're like, oh, that was a waste of time. Like, that didn't tell me anything. But even that is an insight that allows you to move forward. So there's this part about exploring it and then deriving the nugget of information, consolidating that, and then moving on to the next set of data, right? It leads you to the next question that you need to explore. And so in achieving alignment, I find the process of sort of wrapping your arms around the data you have, going through that mining process to mine for the insights, and then sharing those collectively, and then going on to the next set. Those are sort of the milestones that I look for really early on, is what data are we looking at? And do we evolve that? Do we consolidate it back to a learning and then go on to the next question? That sort of shows me that we're achieving more alignment.
Yeah, that creation of an intentional space where, hey, we have this, whatever it is, a metric, a number, a finding, an activity, something happened. Here it is, everyone. Here's the fact. And that's all data is. It's a fact, it's a number, it's just this thing. But you have someone from the product team who might interpret it in one way, and someone from the revenue generation or sales team who will interpret it another way. Support and customer success will have a third methodology. Leadership will have different things, and even different members of the leadership team might say, well, I see this. Wow, that's interesting. Help me understand that, because I was thinking over here.
Mm-hmm.
I had mentioned chatting with my sister-in-law. We were texting this morning, and we were talking about just some data sets and an interesting A/B test that she ran. And she said, "Yeah, there's a finding over here that's kind of interesting. I'm curious about that." And I said, "Huh, well, what about this or this or this?" And she said, "I hadn't thought about that. That's a fair point. I was thinking from this angle." And I said, "That's a fair point too. I wonder which one's more accurate. I wonder where it is."
Yeah.
So those conversations create that space.
Yeah, and a lot of times, actually, the interpretations are all accurate or somewhat accurate. And then the insight is derived from figuring out how those piece together into an action or a takeaway or the next step or question. And I think, the other part about it, after that consolidation or that learning, that shared learning process happens, then another milestone that I check for is like, are we all answering with the same answer as a leadership team primarily, but throughout the company as well, right? Do we all understand where we're headed? Do we all understand what we just learned collectively so we can go forward and make progress as an organization? And one really concrete example of this is I was in a board meeting recently, and we were doing a presentation about, again, some findings and then some learnings we had to the board. And up until that point, it's always a little nerve-wracking, right?
Oh,
You're like,
yeah.
as a leadership team, you're like, I don't know, what is the sales guy going to say about this? Or what is the product person, the board's going to say, like, how do you feel about this, Mr.
Oh.
And you're always like, oh no, what are they going to say? Did we talk about this enough? Do I know it's going to come out of their mouth? That kind of thing. And it was the first meeting, because we're a newer team working together, where we had questions and everybody's answers were, I was like, oh yes, I knew that's what they were going to say. Oh, yep, that's the right answer. Like, that's not a surprise. That won't be a surprise to anybody on the leadership team. We've talked about it enough. We've come to that shared understanding together. We're all kind of operating as one on this topic. That is a great feeling, and also sort of a very solid demonstration that we have alignment.
Yeah, that bubbling up of both the leadership team, and then I'm imagining from that alignment of your leadership team, and for those of you who haven't been in a boardroom before, either for a nonprofit or serving on a member of a board, it's a completely surreal experience. Speaking as someone who's been on multiple boards, it's a little weird, but then if you get that team that's effective and gelling together, that kind of, it bubbles up and you go, well, yeah, like, this is self-evident that this is the direction we have to go and way to go. How can I support?
Mm-hmm.
Which becomes the real question that I'm always asking is, well, this is the right strategic direction. What do I need to do to make sure we get there as a board member?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like maybe one other comment on alignment is maybe around the cultural aspect, which is, looking at having all these conversations, looking at data, exposing new maybe issues, right? And challenges. There's not always good insights. It could be like, oh, we have a problem here. Just having people be able to wrestle with those topics in the open, I view as a good milestone. So every time I start to get into maybe a difficult conversation where someone's like, oh, I found this out the other day, or we had this setback, and we're talking about that, and it kind of gets maybe, it's not the lightest conversation. It could get a little heavy. I try to check myself and be like, this is actually a good thing. I mean, let's stay respectful, and the tone of the conversation matters, but this is actually good that we're working through this and not ignoring it, or people don't feel comfortable bringing it up. These are all helping achieve alignment at the end of the day.
Yeah, you get that space. I'm a big, anyone who talks to me routinely knows I'm a huge fan of Tom Patterson, and one of Tom's favorite sayings was, it's better to find an inconvenient truth before the inconvenient truth finds you.
Yeah.
So like you bring that awkward conversation to light, and it creates alignment by default. Alignment's almost the result. There's a couple of opportunities, and opportunity is always the last segment of the W.I.N show. What's next? That future sight. There's a couple of big things going on in Syncro's world, and we're recording this on the 1st of September, but this show's going to go live on the 13th, which I think, if I'm looking at my calendar right, you will have just made a very major announcement, and I don't want to steal it, so talk to us about that, because we had a really interesting conversation around this announcement.
Yes, lucky September 13th, when this airs, we will have launched a new Syncro identity, a new brand. Mostly you'll see it that manifest on our website. And, you know, as an important sort of organizational activity, it's maybe not something that our partners will see as like a priority necessarily, but I'm really excited about it. And I'm excited about it because I think it brings all the change that's going on and the alignment that we've achieved in my time as CEO from sort of an internal place to the external world. And I think, you know, that's why I'm very excited about the brand launch, is that I feel it's an accurate representation of where Syncro is at in our journey today. And I think it's something that internally our employees are rallying around. I think it's really important to have a consistent sort of visual identity. It drives a lot of energy, and it's something that drives sort of pride, right, and ownership, and people want to be a part of. And that goes for employees, but also for our partners as well.
I love that. I love that. Like, there's a couple of such resonating takeaways with what you just said, that pride and ownership, as well as a representation. And the theme that I've been having on this is around alignment. We've been talking about alignment throughout this episode, and creating a brand. People think about brand. Well, brand does this, brand does that. The piece about brand that I always thought was it takes strategy and makes it relatable in a picture or a few words. It says, this is who we are, this is what we value, this is what we're trying to achieve, these are our values, and this is the impact that we want to create in the world. This is what we want to enable. This is how we want to make our mark. And you put that into a logo, you put that into design, you put that into words and messaging, and it goes out, and it's the rallying cry for the employee, that customer support engineer who's dealt with issue, and they kind of glance over and they look at the water bottle, or they look at the core value poster, or they see something like that, and they go and they push the button and take the next call, right? Like, it's that item, but then it's also that area where I'm struggling in my business. I've got a managed service provider. I'm having issues in technology. I'm having issues in organization. I'm struggling around delivery, and they pop onto the website and they read it and they go, these guys get it. They're speaking to my story. They understand, like, this is me. Yeah. Everything they're talking about here is me. I'm looking in a mirror right now. How can I get started?
Yeah, so it gives people something to sort of relate to and react to as well. And that's really hard. So I didn't mean to minimize the good work that our teams have done to come up with our brand. I think that they've excellently sort of distilled all of what you said, the values and the ethos and that growth phase of Syncro, right? We haven't really updated this in a long time. So I think a lot of us feel disjointed experience with our current brand, or old brand by the time this airs. And I think this really allows the current team we have in place to come together and rally around something and move forward. So I'm really excited. And don't worry, you'll know by this time that we kept the octopus. So the octopus is not going.
Yes, yes. I've seen the new logo. Spoiler alert, everyone! I've seen the new logo. It looks very fetching, and I'm excited to get on the website. And so, kind of wrapping this up, the other opportunity that we had talked about really does drive home that alignment, and again, without stealing too much from, because we're having a future deeper conversation around how you guys have done this, but one of the core focuses you have, Syncro is an all remote workforce. Some of our listeners might not realize that. But in an all remote workforce, you've got a very deep core strategic focus on connection, because this is someone who you might never meet face to face. We're remote. We're not going to bump into each other at the water cooler or grabbing a cup of coffee. You talked to me about that focus on connection. Talk to us about that. How are you guys pursuing that right now?
Yeah, and you mentioned, we might never meet in person, and that's true for a lot of our company right now, and even extending again to our partners. they don't always get the chance to meet us in person, especially with the state of the world. Conferences weren't a thing over the last couple of years. So how do you find sort of commonalities? Or again, the brand is a great one. How do you find ways to inspire people and give them common connection points while working remote? And not having the opportunity to meet face to face. Because I think when you get to interact with someone face to face, it's like a natural touch point. It's a natural factor that you feel connected just by, breathing the same air and getting sort of that informal time with someone to chat. So how do we replicate those things for our employees and create those connections? And we'll talk about that more on the webinar, so I won't give that away. But it is something that I think about a lot, and we spend a lot of time on at Syncro. And then I think a meditative practice is a huge part of that too, because there is so much change. There is so much going on. There are challenges, right? We are growing and we have personal lives, right? We're people. So folks have a lot going on. And I think meditation is a great way to take a pause, take a step back from that and really look at sort of what's important, get some perspective, allow things to kind of, pass through you and move on from, right, to the next thing, or maybe let go some of those initial reactions, those like instinctual reactions to things, and move to like the next level of thought around it. So that's something that is really important to us as well.
100%. Emily, I really appreciate you taking some time to share your thoughts and the learnings that you have from running the team over at Syncro with the audience at W.I.N.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, 100%. It's my pleasure. Emily's active on LinkedIn. You can connect with her there. If you're interested in learning more about SyncroMSP and you want to see that new brand that we just talked about, SyncroMSP.com, you can view more about Richardson Richardson, read our blog articles, look at other episodes of the W.I.N podcast or the Thursday process webinars by going to r&r.consulting. If you're interested in registering for that webinar I mentioned, head to the thursdayprocess.com. It'll take you to the master page for the series, and you can register for the conversation that Emily and I have coming up in early October. I'm Ian Richardson. I really appreciate you taking some time out of the day to be with us. And until next time, take it easy.
You've been listening to W.I.N with Richardson Richardson. What's important now? We're so glad you've joined us and know you're one step closer to winning big in your business too. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to connect@rnr.consulting. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll easily know when new episodes are available. Until next time, you can win, and we're here to help.